All right, welcome to Saturday Football Java, your unbiased view of college football. Roll Tide. Now, got some pretty good games coming up today. One is Auburn versus Georgia. Now, this has lost a lot of its luster because both teams are kind of in the toilet this year. And what's funny is both these teams were picked preseason to win their division. Georgia was supposed to win the East. Auburn was picked to win the West. Still have no idea why. And yet both teams are in the cellar. Georgia has completely imploded this year. Auburn imploded and is kind of making a little bit of gains back to respectable play. But they're going to have a tough time with Georgia. Both teams are going to have a tough time with each other, to be honest with you. I think defensively, Georgia's better. Originally I had Auburn picked to win this game, but I think I'm going to switch over and go to Georgia. I think that defensively, Auburn's going to have a hard time moving the ball. Really going to have a hard time moving the ball. Quarterback has just been inconsistent at best. He's played a little bit better since he was benched and then come back. And Gus Malzahn's backyard, schoolyard football strategy is just not going to ever win Auburn a national championship. And he needed two miracles a couple of years ago just to get in the game, and this is not going to happen. You have to play smash mouth football in the SEC if you're going to win consistently, and Auburn just isn't getting that message. I think they will improve as time goes on because Will Muschamp's there, and he is a great defensive coach. He's a horrible head coach, but a great defensive coach, and so we'll see, but I'm going to take Georgia in 3 points because I think Auburn's really going to struggle moving the ball. You have Florida at South Carolina. Now, last week, Florida got into a little bit of a bind, and almost saw their season go down the toilet. It didn't help them with the playoff committee, the fact that they had to kick a pretty lengthy field goal toward the end of the game to get ahead of a horrible Vanderbilt team. And so 4 turnovers didn't help, but the offense just kept getting inside the 20 and imploding. It really should have been a blowout. It should have been like a 31-7 game or 31-3 game, and Florida just kept stumbling and getting in their own way. I don't think you're going to see that this week against South Carolina. I think they got that out of their system. I think the scare sort of refocused them, and I think you're going to see a 10-point Florida victory over South Carolina, who is just horrible. When your legendary football coach quits 4 or 5 games in the middle of the season, first off, that was a crappy thing to do, and secondly, things are just going to go from bad to worse. And I don't expect South Carolina to be good for 2 or 3 years because that just probably wrecked recruiting, and Clemson should really send a thank you letter to Steve Spurrier because any good 4 to 5 star prospects, not that a lot of them go to South Carolina, but if they were on the fence, Clemson, South Carolina, Spurrier just gave them that push. So I think it was a crappy thing to do with the school and a crappy thing to do with the football program. Anyway, moving on, North Carolina versus Miami. North Carolina, I think, is one of the better teams that nobody's talking about. Yes, they lost their opening game to South Carolina, but has won every single game from there. Now, they haven't played anybody really good, but it is the ACC. And this week, I think South Carolina's going to handle Miami pretty soundly. I think 10-point victory. Miami is just not even a shadow of its former past. Nobody wants to coach there. There was rumors this week that Charlie Strong might be interested in the job. Why would Charlie Strong want to go and try to fix a program that is probably worse than what he inherited at Texas? And he inherited a mess at Texas. And he is not going to go to Miami. Nobody good's going to go to Miami, so they're probably going to get Tommy Tuberville, who's been rumored to be it, but Tuberville has proven that he was good at Auburn, but even toward the end, he just can't win anymore. I don't know what his problem is. Maybe he just never was that good to begin with, and he just had great assistance. But so hopefully Miami will get Tuberville and stay in mediocrity. LSU, Arkansas. Arkansas has been known in the past to give LSU problems. Arkansas had to have a miracle to save them against Ole Miss, but let's face the fact, Arkansas was flinging that ball all over the place against a pretty good defense in Ole Miss, and LSU reeling from the beat down that Bama gave them last week, taking their star player, and really showed how one-dimensional LSU is. And if you put 8 men in the box, now Arkansas's defense is not Alabama's, but they're not bad either, and they're really built like like Bama's built and like LSU's built. Big up front, built to stop the run, and LSU's going to have trouble moving the ball against Arkansas unless that quarterback has some kind of miracle day and can really start flinging the ball around. The question really is, can Arkansas score points? I don't think they're going to be able to. I'm going to take LSU by 7. Stanford and Oregon. Still, I don't give Stanford any respect. I think they're overrated, and I think Oregon is going to, who's also, well, they're not overrated. Oregon's, they're having hangover from Mariota going pro, and they're not what they were and may not be. The time of the glory of Oregon may be gone for quite some time. But I think Oregon's going to take care of business against Stanford, and I think it's going to be by 10. Oklahoma and Baylor. Now, this is a big game, and it's a big game for both schools, and this is why. Oklahoma has had one loss this year, and is trying to get back to national relevancy. Every year, Oklahoma looks like they're going to be good, and then they drop a couple of games they shouldn't. And this year, they got punched in the face by Texas, who is just not very good. But it goes to show you what rivalry games can do, and I think Oklahoma, after that, has played better, and I think Baylor, who has played no one ranked, no one good, they have not played against a good offense or a good defense, and so I'm not impressed when teams hang 60, 50, 60 points against teams that they should hang 50 or 60 points against. And I think when you come in and Oklahoma gets in that backfield, pressures that quarterback, and hits that quarterback, I think you're going to see that. And Baylor won't be able to run the ball against Oklahoma. I think you're going to see probably a 10 to 13 point victory for Oklahoma and crush the Bears' hopes again of getting into the national championship. And here's the thing, Big 12, you need to have a championship game. All right, your conference, nobody's going to take it seriously until you do that. Get a championship game. I don't care what it takes, and let's get two conferences, two divisions, and let's see who. Let's play some games that aren't being played during the regular season. You need to do that. I mean, my gosh, even the ACC does that. All right. Then you have Utah and Arizona. Now Utah is not the Cinderella team anymore. Everybody, they lost their game, so they're not going to go to the championship game. And I think Arizona's going to put the nail in that coffin and beat Utah. I really don't have stats or anything like that. I guess it's just a little fuzzy feeling that I have, but I think Rich Rodriguez is going to have a field day with Utah, and I think you're going to see numerous turnovers by Utah, and I think you're going to see probably a 31-20 victory by Arizona. Now, the game of the week, as always, is the Bama game, but we're unbiased here, so don't think for one moment that I pick against your team just because we're playing them, unless you're Notre Dame or Michigan. Or usually Auburn. Don't particularly care for Tennessee either. So, but the thing about it is Bama's playing Mississippi State. Now, some have labeled this a trap game, coming off just a dominant performance last week of shutting down LSU's running game and a running back that was getting 193 yards a game gets 31 against Alabama. It didn't really shock anybody who knows these two teams. Mississippi State, though, brings a sort of a spread offense. They have Dak Prescott, who can run the ball. He's okay throwing. A lot of people compared him to Tim Tebow. I think Tebow was a little bit better of a leader and a little bit better of a passer than Prescott. Big guy. And I think if that front four can keep him contained and make him win the ball game with his arm, he won't be able to do it. I see us having a couple of turnovers. My question is which Alabama offense is going to show up? Are we going to see Derrick Henry get another between 150 and 200 yards? Mississippi State's defense is not as good as it's been in the past, and so, but I don't know. It really depends. When people play Bama, they want to, especially in the last 5, 6, 7 years, we're going to wreck their run for the national championship. This is the game that everybody circles when they play us, and so you're going to get everybody's best. Mississippi State's only had 2 losses this year, which was to LSU, which was a game Mississippi State, in my opinion, had plenty of opportunities to win, and then Texas A&M, who is now imploded, and so. And in those games, Prescott had a lot of rushing yards. He didn't have and in I think the loss to LSU, he had a lot of passing yards, but they couldn't get in the end zone. And so I see Bama winning this game. It could go either way. It could come down to a really close game and we win by 3, or it's a pick fest and Bama wins by 21. But either way, I think Alabama walks out of there with a victory, and then still not secured its trip to Atlanta. We still have to beat Auburn at Auburn this year, which we'll talk about that when the time comes. So that's my picks. Hopefully I'll do better than I did last week. But hey, I'm not an expert. What do you know? I do this just because it's fun, and I like to see if I know what I'm talking about, which usually I'm not, but I don't get paid.